Hi everybody, it's the actual last days of the year and we're doing Clues by Sam again. Since it's Monday, we have an easy one today, but I'm gonna follow our tradition and do one from the #1 pack that Clues by Sam has available for us to buy if you want to. Name your own price. And yeah, let's start with this one. It's a good one to start with. If you've never played Clues by Sam before, there is a link in the description if you want to try it. And if you don't know what Clues by Sam is, it's a daily puzzle game. There's 20 people, each of them may be a criminal or an innocent, and you gotta figure out who is what using the clues that they themselves give you. And we are here every day practicing it. So if you get stuck and you need any help, then I'm gonna try to explain my logic. And let's start right now. We start with David telling us that Hall is one of 4 innocents in column C. So Hall is an innocent. There's 5 people in column C, only one of them is a criminal. And now Hall tells us that exactly one of the 2 farmers has an innocent directly below them. Where are all the farmers? Well, there's 2 farmers total, so if one of them has to have an innocent below them, it has to be the one that has someone below them, which means that Vicky, one of the farmers, is an innocent. And we don't need whole school anymore. Now Vicky tells us that exactly 2 of the 3 innocents neighboring Ivan are above Xavi. So Ivan has 1 innocent already, that's whole, but he has 3 innocents total. 2 of them are above Xavi, so that means that our single criminal in column C is either Lisa or Donna. And that tells us that Sophia is an innocent. And that also tells us that either Eli or Nancy are the 3rd innocent neighbor that Ivan has. Now Sophia tells us that neither of Hall's neighbors in row 2 are innocent. So row 2, Hall is in row 2 himself, and he has 2 neighbors in row 2. None of them are innocent, so we know that both Gus and Ivan are criminal. And now Ivan tells us there is only 1 innocent farmer, so that means that Vicky, the farmer who is already an innocent, is the only one, which means that Olivia is a criminal. And now Olivia tells us that both criminals in row 4 are connected. Row 4 has Olivia as a criminal already, so she's telling on herself. And that also tells us that Ruth is the 2nd criminal. Since the clue tells us there's only 2 criminals in row 4, we know that Thor is an innocent. Now Thor tells us there is only 1 innocent in row 2. That's Hall, so we know that Frank is a criminal then. And now Frank tells us that an odd number of innocents on the edges neighbor Ivan. So we know that Ivan's gonna have for sure 1 innocent on the edge here, who's Eli or Nancy. If Donna were to be an innocent as well, there will be an even number of innocents neighboring Ivan on the edges. So now we know that Lisa is an innocent and Donna is a criminal. Now Lisa tells us some flavor text, and Donna tells us that Keith has more criminal neighbors than Jerry. Jerry has 4 criminal neighbors so far, as does Keith. Since Keith has to have more, then that means that Jerry has to be a criminal and Keith has to be an innocent. Now, Keith tells us that Hall has exactly 4 criminal neighbors. So where's Hall? Here. So far, he has 3 criminal neighbors, and for sure he's gonna have a 4th one who's either gonna be Eli or Nancy, but that tells us that Claire is an innocent. And now Claire tells us that each column has at least 2 innocents. What column doesn't have 2 innocents already? Column A. So we know that Ben has to be the 2nd innocent in that column and the last one. Now, all other columns already have 2 innocents, so we don't need that clue anymore. Ben tells us that Vicky and Eli have an equal number of criminal neighbors. Eli has 2 criminal neighbors total, so Vicky has to have 2 as well, and she already does. So we know that her last neighbor is an innocent. And now Wanda tells us there's an odd number of innocents on the edges total. How many do we have already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's an odd number that we're gonna have for sure with the ones that we know about here, Eli and Nancy. So if Zoe were to be an innocent as well, that would be an even number, which means that Zoe is a criminal. Now Zoe tells us that Nancy has more innocent neighbors than Thor. Thor has 3 innocents already. Who's the other person? Nancy. Nancy has 3 as well. Oh, Nancy has 4. Almost didn't see Thor. It's because the clue mentions them, so I just ignore. Nancy has more innocent neighbors than Thor. So Nancy has 4. If Nancy herself were to be an innocent, then Thor would have 4 as well. So Nancy couldn't be an innocent, which means that he is a criminal, she is a criminal, and Eli is an innocent. And we are done. What was the time there? 4:17. That's a lot. But that was a fun one. Even though it's easy, I liked it a lot. And shall we do a harder one from the pack? Okay, I'm here with puzzle number 47 from the puzzle pack number 1 that Clues by Sam has available, like I said before. And this is a brutal one, so let's see how this goes. The last one was really nice. I got an all green, so I'm hopeful for this one. Let's restart so we get the time right. And let's go with Isaac telling us that both innocents above Xena are connected. So Isaac is one of the innocents above Xena, which means that the other one has to be either David, who is connected to Isaac, or Martin, who is also connected to Isaac. So we know that Sophia is a criminal. Now Sophia tells us that the only innocent to the left of David is to the right of Austin. Oof. One innocent only to the right of David, to the left of David, here, always to the right of Austin. So we know that either Barb or Cheryl are an innocent and the other one is a criminal. And the clue also tells us that there's only one innocent to the left of David, which means that Austin is a criminal. Now Austin tells us that Flora is one of Hilda's 5 criminal neighbors. Hilda so far has one criminal neighbor here who's either going to be Barb or Cheryl. The second one is either David or Martin, and Isaac couldn't be a criminal, he's already an innocent, so we need 3 more people to total 5 criminals. That means that all of these guys are criminals, Flora, Kyle, and Logan. So we can total 5. Now, Flora tells us that Cheryl has more innocent neighbors than Xena. We don't know about Xena yet, but Cheryl already has one more innocent than her so far. Let's look at Kyle's clue. Vince has more criminal neighbors. Vince has more criminal than innocent neighbors. So that could mean that Vince has all criminal neighbors, because 5 is more than 0. Since we don't know about anybody, that doesn't serve us anything. So Logan tells us now that an odd number of innocents on the edges neighbor Isaac. Innocents. Isaac's gonna have one innocent neighbor here. It's either gonna be David or Martin. If Cheryl were to be an innocent as well, that will be an even number. So we have Cheryl being a criminal, and that means that Barb is an innocent. We don't know the total for Isaac, so that clue doesn't serve us anymore. Cheryl now tells us that Austin and Isaac have an equal number of innocent neighbors. Austin and Isaac. So far, they have the same number of innocent neighbors, so that doesn't matter. Now, Barb tells us that only one of the 10 criminals on the edges is Cheryl's neighbor. Criminals. The only person who could be a criminal and on the edge and neighbor Cheryl is David, because all of the other neighbors that she has on the edge are already innocent. So we know that David is a criminal, and that makes Martin an innocent. The clue also tells us that there are 10 criminals on the edges total. So let's leave that there to remind us of that. And now Martin tells us that all criminals in column C are connected. So that tells us that Hilda has to be a criminal, because Cheryl and Logan are both in column C and they're separated by Hilda. Now, we know the total of innocent and criminal neighbors for Cheryl. There was a clue talking about Xena and her Floras. Cheryl has more innocent neighbors than Xena. And that means that Xena could have at most one innocent neighbor, because Cheryl has 2 total. But are we sure that these are one or the other? What we are sure is that all criminals in column C are connected, and if Xena has to have at least one more criminal neighbor, it has to be Ryan. Now we don't know about Wanda. What can we know about her though? Vince has more criminal than innocent neighbors. That's okay. We don't need Isaac 2 anymore. Now we know that Austin and Isaac have an equal number of innocent neighbors. Isaac has only one innocent neighbor, so we know that Austin has to have only one as well, and that's Barb, which means that Ellie is a criminal. Now Ellie tells us that Wanda and her have an equal number of innocent neighbors. Where's Wanda? Well, Ellie has one innocent neighbor so far. So that means that Wanda has to have at least one. Is it gonna be Xena or Vince or Ollie? Don't know yet. I know about the fact that there are 10 criminals on the edges. So let's count how many we have already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many people do we have left on the edges? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have only one more innocent to put on the edge. Okay. What do I do with that? Maybe Vince. Maybe Vince. We know for sure that Wanda has to have one more innocent neighbor, right? Or, I mean, one at least. So let's think if Ollie could be that innocent neighbor. In that case, we would still have to have one innocent neighbor to go on the edge so that we can have our 10 total criminals. That person would have to be either, it couldn't neighbor Wanda, because if Wanda had a second neighbor on the edge who is an innocent, Ellie would have to have a second neighbor who is an innocent, and that would be Janet, who would also be an innocent on the edge, so that will break the total of criminals on the edge. If I guess that makes both Vince and Xena criminals. By the same rule, it doesn't matter what Ollie is. Because if either Vince or Xena... Vince? Nah, it does matter what Ollie is. Because if Ollie is a criminal, Vince or Xena could be an innocent. Because Wanda would still have the same number of innocents as Ellie neighboring her. So it does matter what Ollie is. And if Ollie is an innocent, the only other people who could be innocents would be either Nancy or Thor. As not to break Ellie and Wanda's equal number. Could Nancy or Thor be innocents? They could, because Vince would still have more criminal neighbors than innocent. Sorry, I was thinking about Janet. Because if Janet, let's clear the text. The thing is that Janet couldn't be an innocent because of what I just said. If Janet is an innocent, then Wanda would have to have 2 innocent neighbors, and that's impossible without having one more innocent on the edge. So Janet has to be a criminal. Now, Janet tells us that all criminals in column A are connected. So since we know that the 2 people left in column A are both on the edge, column A is on the edge, and only one of them can be an innocent. If there are any innocents, Nancy has to be a criminal. And now Nancy tells us that only one of the 6 criminals neighboring Ryan is Isaac's neighbor. Criminals. And that's Logan, who neighbors both Ryan and Isaac. But now we know that Ryan has 6 criminal neighbors. And since Ryan has 8 neighbors total, 2 of them are innocent. And that makes it so. Oh, we also know that Wanda is gonna have only one innocent neighbor, right? So if Wanda can only have one innocent neighbor and Ryan shares 4 neighbors with her, 3 of which are not assigned a row yet. Let's say that Vance is in it. First let's think about Ollie because it's more practical. If Ollie were to be an innocent, Ryan has 6 criminal neighbors. Wanda has her 1 innocent neighbor. Which would make both Vance and Xena criminal. Wanda would have to be criminal as well because Ryan couldn't have any more innocent neighbors. And we still need 1 more innocent on the edge, so that will have to be Thor. I'll be right back. Back. What was it talking about? Yeah, both of these guys could be innocents. Now, if Ollie were to be a criminal, let me clear this. If Ollie were to be a criminal, then Ryan's second innocent neighbor would have to be here. And it would have to be either Vance or Xena, because Wanda still needs 1 innocent neighbor. Thor will be a criminal then, but the most important thing is that Wanda has to be a criminal in any situation, because if she is an innocent, then there's no way for her to have 1 innocent neighbor, since Ryan already has the 2 that he needs. So Wanda has to be a criminal. Wanda now tells us that there are 16 criminals in total on the board. So 10 on the edges and 6. Which means that Ollie is a criminal as well, because we have 2, 4, 5, 6 people who are not on the edges. We don't need Wanda's clue anymore. Now Ollie tells us that column D has more innocents than any other column. Interesting. Column B has 2 innocents. If column B were to have an innocent, both columns would have the same number of innocents. So that couldn't happen. Vance couldn't be an innocent. He has to be a criminal. And then it wouldn't matter who of these guys are innocents. Now, we know that Wanda needs an innocent neighbor and it has to be Xena, which makes Thor a criminal. That was it. A nice one, a brutal one in less than 13 minutes. I'm pretty proud of myself and I hope you enjoy this. Let me know if you do play the pack. I encourage you to do so. It starts at $1 if you want to try it. And yeah, I'll be back here again tomorrow with more Clues by Sam. Bye bye.